Christmas is just around the corner, and although this is a time to be joyful and happy, some of the traditions that hold Christmas together might come with some disturbing backstories that'll make you question if Christmas is actually a jolly time. I'm your host Andrew, and I compiled the list of the top 10 scary Christmas traditions with disturbing backstories. Let's get right into it. At number 10 spot, we have evil carolers. We all know the tradition when a group of people come to someone's door and sing carols for a couple of minutes. Many of these carols are sung to tell the story of the birth of Christ, while others are done to spread the joy throughout the holidays. Regardless, this tradition is seen as something completely innocent and friendly nowadays. But back in the 1700s, carolers had a much darker intention for their singing. Author and historian Thomas Christensen would note that carolers in the 18th century would come to homes and demand the family for their possessions, and in some cases, they would straight up kick the door down and steal it themselves. One of the carols that were sung during the process of a home invasion went like, quote, "We have to come to claim our right, and if you don't open your door, we'll lay you flat upon the floor." The same historian recalled that in the early 1700s, one minister would describe the act of caroling as occurring in the quote, midst of rioting, chambering, which is fornication, and wantonness. At a number 9 spot, we have chimney jumping. In order for Santa to send gifts to all the nice people of the world, he must first climb down through their chimney. At least that's what the tradition states. Here, Santa will keep his reindeers on the roof while he pops down the chimney to deliver his gifts and to eat your cookies. Seems pretty innocent, right? Well, if we replace Santa with anyone else, this would be a completely different story. And unfortunately, Santa's actions is tied with many other supernatural legends and other horrific stories about chimneys. For example, Scottish and English legends speak of a friendly household spirit that enters home at night through the home's chimney. They are known as brownies or a broonie. In a much darker context, in the Middle Ages, witches were also believed to get into homes through the chimney. As well as in Greece, they believed goblins would slip down chimneys to reward good children and punish naughty ones. From all of this, it's hard to believe that Santa wasn't inspired by all these legends. At a number 8 spot, we have Don't Eat Santa's Cookies. Deeply rooted in South African culture is a terrifying story of the consequences of eating one of Santa's infamous cookies. We all know the tradition of Santa coming down the chimney to come eat all your cookies. But here in South Africa, there are fatal consequences if you decide to eat the cookie yourself. The story goes that a young boy named Danny was with his grandmother when she finished baking some Christmas cookies. She immediately warned Danny that he shouldn't touch or go near the cookies because they were meant for Santa. But kids being kids, he couldn't resist his own sugar cravings. So he thought it wouldn't hurt to eat a few, thinking no one would notice. However, the moment he went in for the bites, the grandmother noticed and got extremely upset. In a rage, the grandmother pummeled Danny and started beating him to a pulp until he actually passed away. Ever since, his tragedy has served a reminder not to mess with Santa cookies. Many have also laid claim that Grandma could have been possessed by Krampus himself, which would have explained why Grandma went full rage mode on her own grandson. Number 7, mistletoe's origin. Mistletoes have been an iconic symbol of love during the Christmas time, and tradition says that if a woman were to stand under one, they have no choice but to share a kiss with a lucky man. After each kiss, one berry of the mistletoe would be removed until it has no more left. And the reason for this tradition in the first place was to increase a woman's chance in marriage. However, from past legends and stories, the mistletoe has been used for many different sinister intentions. For example, in Greek mythology, Baldur, the son of Odin, was prophesied to die. So to stop his fate, Baldur's mom and the goddess of love Frigg went on a mission to speak to all living things in order to secure an oath of security for Baldur. They spoke to almost all living things, but somehow they missed out on the mistletoe. So Loki, the god of mischief, decided to make a mistletoe arrow and put an end to Baldur. As well, the mistletoe's original tradition included that if a woman refused a kiss under the mistletoe, she would be met with bad luck, which just seems like a complete violation to consent norms nowadays. At a number 6 spot, we have the Yule Lads. In Iceland, children were told terrifying stories of these mythical creatures known as the Yule Lads. According to the legend told by many generations, the Yule Lads would visit children at night in 13 days leading up to Christmas, and they didn't visit for any good reason. Every time they did visit, they would do some mischievous thing, and this would cause problems because there was 13 different Yule Lads terrorizing people. Each of these 13 Yule Lads had varying personalities and and when they visited a person, they would often steal food and resources that were essential to their own survival. And if that wasn't terrifying enough, the Yule Lads also had a demonic pet cat, which had a specific taste for children, but would go after full-grown adults if needed. Many believe these creatures were from another dimension, while another large following believed it to be the children of Eve that she hid from God. Regardless, these guys are the signs of bad times, and children in Iceland must be terrified around Christmas time. In the hump of our list, we have the gingerbread. Every Christmas, there's a strong chance you will encounter gingerbread, or at least the scent of it wafting around the cold air. During these festive times, gingerbread is used to make gingerbread men and gingerbread houses that come in all shapes and sizes. However, the tradition of using gingerbread originates from the famous Brothers Grimm's tale of Hansel and Gretel. If you didn't know, in the story, the siblings get lost in the woods, and as they're searching for their way out, they stumble upon a house made of candy, cookies, and all sorts of sweets. But inside is a sinister cannibalistic witch. The witch eventually lures the two children into the home by tempting them with candy such as gingerbread. And here she eventually gets a hold of them and proceeds to cook them to eat later. Ever since this story, the tradition of making decorated gingerbread houses started to pop up in Germany during the 1800s. Considering this really dark story, it's a really good thing gingerbread symbolizes the holidays and good times rather than its previous cannibalistic history. At a number 4 spot, we have the Killer Santa. You know those Santas we see at the mall? Well, what if I told you that one of these Santas were actually a serial killer? Meaning that the kids would be around this guy and even sitting on his lap. The Santa in question is a Canadian man named Bruce MacArthur. He was born on October 8th, 1951 in Lindsay, Ontario. He was seen as normal to many, even being noted as having a smile on his face at all times. Even in 1978, he got married, but as the years went by, Bruce started to show different types of behavior. He would eventually start having affairs with men, which eventually led to his divorce in 1998. When he was living alone, he would work as Santa Claus at Toronto's Agin Mall, but on the side, he would begin to let his fetishes go and go on constant dates with other men in the area. It didn't take long until these fetishes turned into atrocities, when between September 2010 to June 2017, he went along and murdered 8 men, a part of the gay community. After the bodies of his victims were found, he eventually pleaded guilty to all men and is now serving life behind bars. Number 3, Christmas stockings. During the holidays, most families will have stockings in front of their fireplaces, and this is the opportunity for our friends and family to fill it up with gifts. However, this tradition has an origin story many people wouldn't expect, including myself. According to the legend, during the 4th century, there used to be a poor man who would constantly complain about the fact that he couldn't afford a dowry for his 3 daughters, which just meant that no one would want to marry them. And at the time, when you didn't have a husband or money, many women would become intimate workers, and this is what happened to these 3, unfortunately. The incident caught the attention of Saint Nicholas himself, who is the inspiration for Santa to many. He would arrive and see 3 pairs of stockings hanging to dry in front of the hearth. So in the middle of the night, he left pieces of gold in each of the stockings, and when the girls woke up, they were so surprised, and ever since, it led to the custom of leaving stockings near a fireplace. Number 2, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was created by a department store. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer may not be as magical as you previously thought. Around Christmas time in the 1930s, the now closed Chicago department store Montgomery Ward used to give away free books to kids. But rather than purchasing books from publishers, they made their own in 1939 in an effort to save some money. Robert L. May, the store's advertising manager, was given the assignment and finally created the first draft of the Rudolph narrative. He was inspired by his own life, which included being a weak, constantly bullied youngster and an unfulfilled adult who never felt like he was living up to his potential. Soon after, his wife would pass away from cancer, and due to the expensive hospital bills, it caused him to sell all the rights to Rudolph, which eventually gave its way to the mainstream media. At a number 1 spot, we have Krampus. The Krampus story has a very long history. It first appeared as a 12th century German Christmas custom, and children in Germany would start to hear rumors in early December about a dark-haired monster with horns and fangs that carried a bundle of birch sticks used to whack mischievous kids. This Krampus would invade the towns, lashing his chains and bells, and according to traditional Alpine legend, to gather the evil kids in a basket and drag them down to the underworld. The night before December 6th, which is St. Nicholas Day, it was known as Krampus Nacht, and it was a time that the good German children would get gifts in their boots. Well, these are the top 10 scary Christmas traditions with disturbing backstories. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with some of your thoughts, and let us know what suggestions we should do for the Christmas holidays. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.